When answering exam questions, there are a few key things to remember, right? So just remember, exam technique is a key part in preparation for any exams, and it's something that you'll pick up the more you go and you do past papers. Right, so many questions in exams are repeats of what will be in old exams. So going and looking at lots of generic questions beforehand is a good idea. When going and answering and questions and reading them, there's a few things just take into account. Make sure you go read the question at least twice so you don't make any mistakes when you're reading them. As you're reading them, go highlight key information. Don't make assumptions about what the question is asking. Make sure after you've answered it, you go check your work for daft errors that you might make. And if it involves going and answering something where there's some calculation, make sure that you write your workings out down. Right, let's go and have a look at the question.
ATP is a large, is an energy carrying structure and acts as a storage molecule within cells. Right, it's a nucleotide that acts as an energy courier. It's referred to as energy currency. So all energy transfers within the cell, so all of them, will take the form of ATP. So we're just going to go and look at a few other key facts about ATP next. So the synthesis of how ATP has been made gives us an idea of the energy present in different fuels used up by the body, and is energy is released from ATP as these high energy phosphate bonds are broken within the ATP. This energy is then available for the cell to use. The way that we're going to go and break those high energy bonds is by hydrolysis, so by putting a molecule of water in there. So just some key things is that each bond releases about 7.3 kilocalories per mole of energy upon hydrolysis, so a relatively large amount. So the hydrolysis of ATP is a two-stage process, because first it's converted into ADP before that third bond is broken, and that would make it into AMP. So, like we've said, each one of those releases 7.6 kilocalories of energy. Right, ATP has a variety of properties that you need to be aware of. So it's highly soluble in water, right, and it's quite stable in solutions around pH 6.8 to about pH 7.4. That's why controlling pH inside of the body is really important. So if we go and look at some of its properties, it's small, so it moves around the cell easily. Like we said, it's soluble in water. It releases enough energy for cellular reactions, but not so much that the energy is wasted as heat. It's easily regenerated, so ADP can be converted back into ATP. So we can think of it as a renewable energy source. And like we said, the energy within that ATP lies mainly between those last two high energy phosphate bonds, right? So kind of there. So if we just go and very quickly have a look at the question. So figure 16.1 shows the structure of ATP. Right, most questions about ATP will show its structure. So if we're naming the component that's circled, that is going to be our adenine base. So if you think about when you have gone and looked at DNA, it's kind of the same, right? So that would be adenine or adenosine. Name the type of reaction that occurs when ATP is converted into ADP. Remember, we're putting water into it, so it's going to be a hydrolysis. In part 3, so teacher told his students that the human body makes the equivalent to its own mass in ATP every day. Explain why, at the end of the day, only a small proportion of the ATP of the mass is made up of ATP. Right, the important bit there is the explain part. Right, there are a number of key things that you could talk about. So you could talk about the fact that the ATP is broken down, or I'll use the phrase hydrolyzed to go and form ADP. The ATP is constantly recycled. The ATP is used to provide energy for metabolic reactions. Right, don't just say provides energy, talk about it providing energy for metabolic reactions. And the fact that the ATP is not stored, right? So it's used up relatively quickly, right? So there's some of the key things that you'll talk about in that instance.
So hopefully you have found that useful. If you've got any questions, then drop it in the comments below, and we'll be uploading a lot more. Right, good luck, folks.